Okay, so now you get the differential between voting in one area, voting in another area. Also segregation, I could have mentioned segregation. Some areas were not segregated at all. Some areas ended segregation years before the federal government made them in 1965. Other areas practiced segregation up until the last minute, fanatically. Okay, literacy test. Here's the funny part. Literacy tests are funny. They're so disgusting, it's unbelievable. Voting rights for minorities was 1870, the 15th Amendment. The Confederate States said, former Confederate States said, listen, if you were legally able to vote in 1867, no literacy test. Yeah. Back then you had to be 21 to vote, now it's 18. And no women back then. We didn't ratify women's suffrage in 1920. Well, that meant that any white man, and they literally said any white man who was 21 in 1867 was exempt from the literacy test. White man that turned 21 after 1867 had to take it. And because black men didn't get voting until 1870, all black men had to take it. Here's the literacy test. You take the registrar. Nowadays, when I registered to vote, I signed the form, mailed it in, and got a card back saying I could vote. Back then, you had to register in person with a live guy. Here's the problem. The registrar was a fanatical racist, white supremacist, fanatical. White man would come in. White man would say, I have to take the literacy test. Registrar would read him the rules, blah, 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 blah. Do you understand this? The white man would say, yes, I do understand. Good, you pass. Right then you pass. Now, black man would come in. You read me the rules and make me understand it. At the end of the man reading the rules, all the racist registrar had to say was, I didn't understand, you can't vote. Sorry. Well, you failed the literacy test, what do you want me to do? You fucking prick. Also, years later they decided to do written tests, multiple choice. They would literally go to one town, one voting station, and pull out records. You would have a white person who would get the same answers right and wrong as a black person, same score and same right and wrong answers. White person passed, black person didn't. Okay, how was that? Bull crap. Well, that's how it was back then. So the literacy test was not proportionate. On top of that, don't forget, this happened right after slavery ended. During slavery, you could not teach a slave to read and write. It was illegal. After slavery ended, there were some white people that wanted to help educate the former slaves. They wanted them to read and write. They wanted to get them educated. They wanted to have them vote. Well, they were deathly afraid they were going to be killed by the Klan. So it was very, very difficult to find a black person, a former slave, that could read and write. So the simple fact that the guy said, you read it to me, that right there exempted 90% of them. Now let's talk about the safety classes. Okay, in my hometown I had to take a safety class. My ankle's itching like crazy. The safety class was 2 consecutive Tuesday nights for 4 hours apiece. And you had to have 10 guys. Because the range is closed and the range instructor has to come in on his day off. They canceled it on me. They said we didn't get 10 guys. Try again in September. Well, one of the days in September was Tuesday, September 11th. I don't want to go anywhere on Tuesday, September 11th. So I told the guy, listen, it says here you also teach the class on a single Saturday. So you can do 2 4-hour classes on Tuesday, one Tuesday, or 1 8-hour class on one Saturday. The guy said, you know what? I gotta be here anyway. We might as well do something. I'll tell the other guy. I went that Saturday, took the safety class with the old man. It was done in 4.5 hours, only 2 guys doing it. Took the safety test, passed it with an 88. That was done. Washington, D.C. You want to get a handgun. First and foremost, go to the Supreme Court and sue and demand you get a right to buy a handgun. After that, fill out a ton of paperwork. There's a woman for the NRA who's in Washington, D.C. doing an experiment for them on how to get the handgun license in DC. You have to take a safety class in DC. You cannot teach the safety class in DC. If I'm a firearms instructor and I drive to DC and I teach the safety class in DC, I'm breaking the law. You have to take the safety class outside, Virginia, Maryland, whatever else is in the area. You cannot take the safety class in DC. On top of that, the safety class has to be 4 hours of classroom training and 2 hours of live firing training. That might be well and good, that might be a good idea, but no instructor in the area teaches it. You can't teach the class in the city, even though the city requires it of you. And there's no instructor that gives that type of class. How am I going to take it? I guess I'm not. Well, in my hometown, the safety class is 4 hours only. I'm sorry. In my hometown, the safety class is lab only. You just read and do instructional shit. You don't actually shoot. So in my hometown, I can have the safety class right at this table. No law against it. I can have the safety class anywhere in this town. So long as I can legally show a gun. I have to show a revolver and a handgun and a semi-auto. So I can't have the safety class in the school. I can have it in my house. I can have it at your house. I can have it at the range. I can have it anywhere I'm legally allowed to bring a gun. I can have it in the hunting grounds. I can have it on the camping grounds. So that's a catch-22. Yes, you have to take the safety class, but you can't take it here. And no one offers the way we want to teach it. So that. Poll tax. This is another hypocritical thing. They said in the poll tax, you have to pay a fee in order to vote. Two problems. Number one, whites were exempt from the fee automatically. Only black men applied. Now, back then, this is right after slavery ended. No Civil Rights Act yet. It's totally legal to refuse employment to someone because of their skin. It's totally legal to pay someone 90% less money because of their skin. On top of that, white families have generations of money saved up. Some of them were rich, some were poor, but they had money saved up. They were exempted anyway, but you had black men that were newly freed slaves. Up until 1865, they had no money. They had no inheritance, they had no land, they had nothing. Where are they going to get money for the poll tax? They cannot afford to pay it. And in the unlikely event, you have a guy that can pass the literacy tests, can get by the poll tax. That's where the Klan came in. So that ends that right there. Compare this to New York City. New York City, thank God I do not live in New York City. New York City has a licensing fee. Well, when I went for my license, I had to pay $10 for a printed out form, which makes sense. It costs about $10 to print the forms out. So it doesn't really matter. Take $10 out of your pocket, get the forms, fill them out. Washington, New York City, New York, they want you to pay $340 for the fee. The background investigation in my hometown and New York City is about $98, $99, $100, which is not that bad. Fingerprints, FBI, state police, it does cost about that much money, so that's not that bad. But licensing, the fee, the application, I pay $10 for the application, they pay $340 for the application. Really? Does it cost $340 to print out the application? Is the application printed on ivory pad with gold lettering? They're actually being sued by the Second Amendment Foundation in federal court over that, because not everybody in New York City can afford $340. Some guys make $200 a week and they gotta pay the fucking bills. How are they gonna afford $340 for a licensing fee? On top of that, do they have to pay that every time they renew the license? Because I had to renew my license recently. $10, mail them the check, fill out one form, not a big deal. In New York City, do you have to pay $340 every time you renew your license? I don't even know the answer to that question. But the licensing fee. Yes, you can buy a gun, but you gotta pay the excessive fee, which is crippling. $340 might not seem like a lot, but if you live in New York City, you may not be that rich. Some guys in New York City live in condos, some guys don't. Okay, one more aspect. Then I'll wrap up part 3. Go into part 3. Okay, voting. I talked about voting. Okay, like the white guy. Listen, this is the good one. This is one of my books I read. I forget which one though, but you would have this one incident was a 22-year-old white woman. This was when women were allowed to vote in the 1950s, I think. 22-year-old white woman and her husband came in to vote. Husband was illiterate. She did his application for him and signed for him. Woman couldn't spell Constitution. It was spelled for her. Woman couldn't understand a few things. They were explained to her verbatim. Her and her husband registered to vote right then and there. Black person in the area, I think it was a black woman, got turned down 12 times. This is the problem. You literally, during the 1940s and 50s, I'm not even joking when I say this, you literally had white people that literally could not read register to vote the first shot. Then, in that same district, you would have a black man or woman who had a master's degree or a PhD. Yes, they were extremely educated black individuals in those areas. Master's degrees, PhDs, school teachers, doctors. Couldn't register to vote. Huh? Some guy that can't even write his own name can vote, but I with a master's degree cannot. Disproportionate. There are certain places that don't even hide the fact. One of them is certain counties in California and New York City, New York. New York City is a gun-free zone city. Ironic because they have 200 shootings a month there for some reason. Coincidence. New York City openly says, no questions asked, they are damn near no issue. You cannot get a carry license in New York City anywhere unless you're a celebrity, a rich person, a politician, or one of their bodyguards. And Mary-Kate Olsen's bodyguard has a carry license. Remember Heath Ledger? Heath Ledger's massage therapist came in, saw him asleep, set up the massage table, tried to wake him up, realized he wasn't responding, called Mary-Kate Olsen, which gave rise to the joke, when someone died, you say their massage therapist called Mary-Kate Olsen. Then call 911. Mary-Kate Olsen's bodyguard arrived on the scene, so the paramedics, the police, the whole 9 yards, he was carrying a gun. New York City is no issue. What is Mary-Kate Olsen's bodyguard doing with a gun? New York City is no issue. What is Donald Trump doing with a gun? Are you an Aerosmith fan? It is rumored that Steven Tyler, who is from my hometown of Yonkers, lived in New York City and had a carry license. It is rumored that his guitarist Joe Perry had a carry license there. There are certain counties in New York City and in California that say no issue. We're not giving anyone a carry license. We don't care if your ex-boyfriend threatened you. We don't care if you witnessed a murder. We don't care if you're a government witness. No carry license. None. You're not getting it. And yet, there was a rumor that Sylvester Stallone was caught carrying a concealed firearm with the high-capacity magazine at a Brady campaign. Also, California. Who carries a gun everywhere in California? Dianne Feinstein. So there are places that say no carry. But you'll see a celebrity or a wealthy person carrying a gun. That's kind of like saying, wait a minute, this guy can't read, he votes, she has a master's degree in literature, she doesn't. Notice the comparison. I'm going to cut again.